We have a group that we need you to participate in as we share information back and forth about the industry. The group is called, it's a Facebook group called PWG Greater Cincinnati, Dayton, Northern Kentucky Event Professionals. So all that long stuff, PWG Greater Cincinnati, Dayton, Northern Kentucky Event Professionals. Please join that group so that we can interact with each other, share information back and forth, and we thank you for doing that. Of course, obviously we have the PWG group as well on Facebook. We would love to have you there. Also, but that vendors group or the event professionals group is very, very important in sharing a lot of information. So it's November, the year is almost over. It's been a very challenging time for all of us in the industry. One thing I always appreciated about Jack Phelps was the information that he shared with us in the way of how the industry is progressing, where it's going, so forth and so on. So I wanted to just share with you some statistics from the same place Jack got the statistics. In 2019, there were 2.13 million weddings in the United States, okay? And that average wedding spent $24,675. So pretty good chunk of change there if you look at that. Well, then came 2020 and the challenges that we've all looked at, we've all dealt with, so forth and so on. 1.11 million weddings, a 49% drop in weddings, with an average spend of $19,850. So not only did it drop, but so did the spend. And why? Because typically guest counts dropped dramatically in this last year. Where did all those couples go? What happened to them? Well, 41.5% of them have moved their event to 2021. Okay? And 7% just flat out canceled the event. Okay? So that's kind of where a lot of them move. Now, here's the statistic that if you're not aware of, you might want to take heed to. What's 2021 projecting like? 2.77 million weddings. So a huge, huge increase in how 2021 is going to look. And the average spend is going to jump a bit to $21,680. So it fell, it's back up, it's not where it was, but it's on its way back up. And then in 2022, they're even projecting out 2.17 million weddings, so still above the norm, and an average spend will jump another couple grand to $23,520 per wedding. So the industry certainly has taken a beating this year, we know that, okay? But what you do about it and preparing yourself for 21 and 22 is crucial, okay? You can't just sit back on your hands and go, oh my, oh me, poor me, I'm hurting. You've got to keep trudging forward and putting yourself out there in front of many, many couples. Some statistics I'm sure you're aware of as we head into December. The month of December, 15.5% of all engagements happen in 1 month, the month of December. So what does that mean? If you don't have your marketing in place by the end of December, you're going to miss a lot of opportunity for couples that get engaged. If you've been looking at the statistics that's been rolling here, the internet provides a wealth of information. And when a couple gets engaged, the first thing they're going to do is start shopping via the internet. So you want to be out there and be present, and that's how we can help you through Perfect Wedding Guide. Another statistic that I thought was always interesting was the average engagement right now is 17.3 months. So that's a very interesting thought. I personally thought it was a little shorter than that, but it's not, it's 17.3. 14.9% of weddings happen in the month of October. October, which we've just got done feeling it. Even though we've been crunched, it was still a busy month. Very, very busy month, followed by September at 13.6%. And then June is third for the month of weddings. So if you're not booked out in October and September yet for 2021, you need to be getting yourself out in front of couples and showing who you are and what you do. 125 person guest count is the average on weddings now. So that's dropped just a slight bit as well. So just some statistics to chew on, to think about. You know, we can get you involved in Perfect Wedding Guide for under $2 a day to get you out in front of people, and we would love to help you do that. Would you welcome Mr. Greg Newell of 50 Bubbles?
Thank you. So I'm not going to go through a lot of intro and a lot of this stuff we're gonna kind of cruise through, but I want to lay some groundwork on why we spend time on the basics of just about any business before we get to the marketing section of this. And that's, you're going to see why we always come back to what we do when we talk to our customers about marketing. And so I think, and I'll tease you a little bit, I think by the time we end this meeting today, you're all going to know who Bubba is. And I think if this works the way I hope it does, you're going to have your own version of Bubba for your business. But it's a lesson I learned very early on, and I kind of want to share that experience with you and take you through this. So some of basically what you're going to see is a grid like this. This is basically a journey that every business follows. So I'm going to take you through the bottom rung, go up and through, and then up to the very top. The bottom, where you're establishing your business, the center part is really where you are just another business, and the top is really where you learn to scale your business. So this is kind of a process that every business will go through. Now, I'll start. Is this me? I bet you this has something to do with it. So some of the biggest businesses started in someone's garage. And the biggest example would be, Apple. Steve Jobs started there. But I'm going to talk to you about a local Centerville business that started in the garage, a company called Inc. Technologies. And the reason I wanted to start there is they started out with a very simple concept. They started out with an idea. This person was trying to replace his printer ink. And what happened is he'd get on Google, he typed the part number for his ink, and ordered it. When he got it back and inserted it into it was the wrong ink. So he said, there's got to be a better way than this. So he went back to his printer, grabbed the ink cartridge out, looked at the part number, went to Google Images, and typed in the part number, and found the image while he was holding the ink cartridge in his hand and said, hey, that's the right one. And so he set up a business based on that concept. He's now $1 million revenue and plus, multi-million-dollar revenue stream, selling off-brand ink cartridges out of now a much bigger garage. But the idea that started the business is something he never wavered from. You can go on Google Images today, do the same thing he did when he started, and you can find your ink cartridge, and if you Google that part number, you're going to find his company at the top of that list. You're going to click it, go there, and buy. It's just an amazing story. He never forgot the concept. The point is we have to be very clear about what we do as a business. And sometimes you can take an idea and run with it and get lost in the process. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So we always want to go back to the roots of what started our business and understand what we're doing for the customer. One of the first things I ask my clients is, what would you do for somebody for free? What are you passionate? a lot of times when you start a business, you start with an idea. The first thing you do is you go to people, you go to just about anybody that you could provide that product or service to, and you will practically give it away because you love doing it. And if you lose sight of that as your business grows, your business is going to tank because you lost sight of it. And we've seen that happen over and over again. In the 1980s, I worked for a company called ABB. $30 billion industrial automation company. The CEO of that company was named Entrepreneur of the Year. Can you imagine somebody of a company that big named Entrepreneur of the Year? What they didn't know is he was making the same mistake most businesses make. He lost sight of his roots. And ABB was growing through acquisitions, and they were growing big time. They got to the point where they couldn't support all the acquisitions and stuff. In the early 90s, they had to pivot and sell off all the acquisitions that they had bought, and their quote, unquote, stated reason for reorganization was return back to our roots. And you'll find a lot of businesses caught in that same trap. We want to avoid that, but you don't often get to avoid that. You're always coming somewhere in the middle, but you always want to get back there. And the reason I'm bringing this up is you need to get back there when you're looking at your advertising and how you're presenting your business to your customer and your audience. An idea, though, is essentially worthless without a benefactor, and that's your core customer. And how many people in this room has actually built up the marketing term for it is persona? How many have actually built up a persona for the customer in their business? I'm just wondering. The persona starts with the word person, and the reason it's there is because you need to understand that's the person you're selling to. The best example I can tell you for that is when I worked for a company called Devron, our CEO at the time was very entrepreneurial. He took every one of us out of our Appleton office. We drove 6 hours to Blandon, Minnesota, to an outfitter out there. And we walk into this lavish, obviously we were guests of it. On a Monday morning meeting, we walked into this lavish conference room, conference table 5 inches thick, made completely out of wood, and the CEO would go out of his way to tell you that conference table was made out of one tree. And the whole purpose of that tree was that conference table. He also told me later on he spent over $100,000 for that conference table just to be able to tell that story. But they were so emphatic about understanding the purpose and the story that was a centerpiece of the conference room. We sat down in the outskirts of that meeting listening to these business-attired people talk about Bubba. And after a good 10 minutes of everybody talking about Bubba just got the new 6-wheel amphibious vehicle. And it's like everybody's talking around a bubbler about this guy named Bubba. And finally I just went, excuse me, but who's Bubba and when does this meeting actually begin? And the CEO stood up and he said, I'm kind of wondering when you were going to ask. He said, the meeting started when we started talking about Bubba. Bubba is the persona of our customer. He didn't use the word persona. I didn't know if it was a word back then, but Bubba is our customer. They knew what Bubba wore. They knew where he lived. They knew what his wife was like. They knew where he shopped, what he bought. They knew at the time what websites he went to. They knew what toys he had. They knew what his kids played with. They knew Bubba down to a T. And you need to know your customer that same way. Because everything this company did, they did for Bubba. And I would like to kind of go through a similar exercise. We're sitting here in a room full of people that markets directly to the wedding industry. And obviously it's not Bubba that you're selling to. Bubba, for all intents and purposes, probably is married. I've got a picture of Bubba at the end of this, but what was interesting to me after thinking about Bubba I was looking for a picture of Bubba on a website called Big Stock, where you're just looking for stock photography, and I had no idea what Bubba would look like. But I knew when I found it that I had found Bubba. And if you can imagine a person in your story, because that's what you're developing here, is a story of that person, if you can develop that character to such an extent that you can always talk about that person in the third person and know exactly what that person's going to be like, what they're going to do, where they're going to be, where they're going to shop. If you can understand a person to that level, then your marketing becomes very easy to do. I will tell you, Google is basically doing that for you in many ways. There's a professor out there named Professor Epstein, who basically is talking about all the information Google has on each person on the planet. And you would be astounded, but he basically is saying the magnitude of the information they have on each person is around 4 million pages. So imagine what Google is trying to do online is create a virtual you. And the very simple reason they want to do it is Google wants to know what you're going to do next. That's it. That's all they care about. Because if they know that, they know what you're going to be thinking. How many times have you typed something in Google and their suggestion was right dead on? They're getting pretty good at it. And you need to understand your customer to that effect. And you can use Google and you can use Facebook to develop that technology. You can let them tell you what your customer is going to do next. But you have to be able to describe your customer to them. And you've probably heard it if you've done any kind of Google marketing or Facebook marketing where you're doing lookalike audiences. And lookalike audiences are just people that look like your customers so that we know when we market to this person, everybody around them that look like them are going to see similar ads and going to react and respond the same way. What I'd like to do is, let's just do a quick brainstorm around the room. Somebody throw out a name of who your customer would be. Who that persona, who's Bubba in the wedding world?
Jessica.
Jessica? Jessica's a good name. Okay, so we'll just call it Jessica. How old is Jessica?
28.
Jessica's 28 years old. Apparently she's a female. Not always. Apparently these days we have to define pronouns. I don't quite get it, but Jessica also lives somewhere, right? Not just physical, location, but there's always a location where you're marketing to. But what kind of house is Jessica living in? Is she still living with her family? She's 28, she's not living with her family. She's not married yet, right? So where is she living? What is she doing right now?
She's cohabitating with her fiance.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Has she been to school? Is she out of school? College? Not college? She's making a decent living? Remember, this is your customer, so it ignores everybody else that's not your customer. So, obviously you want somebody that's got a fairly decent income so they can afford a decent wedding. Is she paying for the wedding? Sometimes, I thought the parents are supposed to pay for the wedding.
These days, I think it's a combination of him, her, them, and parents.
Okay? So parents are a second set of customers that you could market to. So that becomes a different persona, and it becomes a different ad. But once you start coming, now lifestyle, where is she spending time? Is she going to the gym? Is she fit? Is she going to salons and that kind of stuff? Doing her nails? So she's very fashion conscious. You pretty much know from that what she's spending time looking at online. Is she into any reality TV shows? That's right, yeah.
If she's under 25, I think her parents are helping her, and it's going to be something. If she's 28, then I think she's on her own more.
Okay.
And it's her and her
So, and I'll shortcut this a little bit because, I mean, you kind of get the picture, right? And on Facebook, underneath your profile picture, what does it say there? Doesn't it say add to your story? Or what's your story? So Facebook figured this out a long time. You're trying to write the story of that person. Facebook really does write your story. That's the beauty of Facebook. When you look at somebody who is very active in Facebook and you look down through their page, you pretty much know their story. You know where they go, what they like, who they like. I mean, on and on and on. Facebook is actually better at it than Google. But it's amazing. And if you can tap into that and get, you know, if you have one person that is just, this is a representation of my customer, all you have to say to Facebook is, look, I want to talk to people that look like that. And Facebook will just give you that data all day long because they want to sell ads. Google has a similar feature. They're not as good at the demographics, but they're getting there because they don't have, Google has failed miserably at the social media platform, but the reason they want it was not to be a Facebook killer, but they wanted that same access to data that Facebook has. They don't quite have it, but they're finding ways to get it. So you have a solid idea, and when you've tried enough times on enough people, you know that you've got something. You started out with an idea. You know the person that idea works great for. So now you sort of have a concept for a business, right? And when a business starts out, you're giving it away. I don't know anybody in here that has started a business that didn't, they just wanted to go out and do it. They had a passion for what they were doing. And they weren't making a lot of money. They were barely swimming with it. The IRS calls it a hobby at that point. But you loved it and you kept doing it until somebody finally said, you know what, you need to do it for this person over here. And enough people started saying that, you became a word of mouth type of business. And that happens over and over and over again to the point where you decide, wow, I got to do a business plan and I've got to take this to the next level. The problem is you turn Bubba into a target market. And you start going with all the buzzwords. And now you've begun a journey of mistakes that every business makes. Even at this stage, tucked in the context of a nice, tidy vanilla envelope, business owners have started to depersonalize the customer. And whenever we take customers into the marketing experience of Facebook and Google, we have to take them back to step 1 and 2 and repersonalize what it is you're doing. Because if you can't define your customer, all you have is if you don't know who that person is, you're going to throw money out there and you have no idea where it's going to land. One of the biggest mistakes I've made and many businesses make starting out is to broaden their offering, increase their territory, and bite off more than they can chew. I started in Columbus, but I thought my business had to serve Columbus, Dayton, and Cincinnati. I was driving in my car all day long just to meet customers. Then I kind of moved to Dayton during the housing crash. All my competitors left Dayton, and I found out there was more than enough business to be had in Dayton without having to go all over the planet. It happens over and over again. It happened with ABB, that $30 billion company that did the same thing, just on a much bigger scale. In the process of developing your business, don't forget the idea that started your company and the person you wanted to bring that idea to. Build your business plan around that person. If you can't sit down and write the story about how your business started, that's a good place to start. Everybody kind of glosses over the About Us on a website. It's not seemingly that interesting to you, but it is. That's where your story begins. That's your About Us page on your website. And then talk about your customer, and the About Us page really should include, okay, that's who we cater to. As you get into, now I've established a business, that's where the website comes into play. And you've got, so we've turned the corner and we're now building a business. We build a website, we might have physical space, We set up processes and establish a presence, and we kind of lose sight of what we did when we started. Sometimes we even lose the passion and the idea because we get so busy. So the ideas that Bubba loved will be the very foundation of the business. It'll be everything that you do in this room is for Jessica. And if you forget that, you actually fall into the same mistakes that most businesses fall into. And it's exactly why 20% of businesses fail in the first year, and 70, 80% of businesses fail in the 5th year. And it happens over and over again. And I think even the business gurus are telling you it all wrong. They're telling you you didn't spend enough money on marketing. What I think the right answer is you lost sight of what your business was when you started. Because it isn't about the money. It's all of a sudden your eyes got bigger than your stomach. You started eating everything in front of you to the point where you couldn't move anymore. We do it every Thanksgiving. And it happens over and over again. A lot of business will muscle through that period of time and still go on and say, look, I made it past the 5-year mark. But they're surviving. They're not really an established business, just surviving. And I will tell you, most businesses are sitting there. They're surviving. Because if you don't get back to your roots and understand who your customer is and what you do specifically for that customer that is unique to you and your business, you can't market it in a way that 15 other people can't outmarket you for the same thing. And so your ads look boring, they look familiar, and it could be anybody on the market, and the only game you get to play in that arena is price wars. And that is not the place to be. So this is where most businesses are stuck. They're marketing whatever business concept that they've developed. Many of them have forgotten Bubba or Jessica, and many of them have forgotten the original idea that they had when they started. And therefore they've lost the passion. And if you don't have the passion, you don't have that desire, now you're just trudging along and running a business. And I'm just going to jump to this next one. So the next thing that happens is very few people, maybe with the exception of people in this room, I don't know, but very few people can tell you the difference between sales and marketing. I hand you a brochure, is that selling? Is that marketing? Is it both, or is it neither? Same thing with sending out an email. And even if they get the concept of what the difference is between sales and marketing, 90% of them are not selling on the website. How many of you have websites that are delivering actual clients? They purchase, so it's a lead. Is that marketing or sales?
That's marketing.
You have to sell that lead once they call you on the phone, correct?
Correct.
So they're not delivering a client yet. Is there a way that you could have that website deliver a client?
It's about as integrated as it can be, but it's really just delivering a lead. It's boots on the ground, the actual sales.
Yep. So sales is always very personal, right? And marketing tends to be, you're pushing information, but you don't have to be there in person. A lot of times you've got to pick up the phone to do the final sale, but there are some sales tactics. And as a marketer, I get pushed into the sales tactics more than small local businesses. I've been looking at the problem of selling on a website for now close to 5 years. Small businesses don't understand sales funnels for websites. And go back to your roots again. When you were out there and you were passionate about what you do, what is the first thing you did when you met somebody that you wanted to provide your products and services? You gave something away. You can make your website do that. And you give something away, and in return, all you ask for is a simple email address. And now all of a sudden, your website kicks into sales mode. And it starts telling that person more about your business and more about your company, gets more inside their head. When they click a link on an email, it takes them to a specific page. If you had 3 links in your email and they click one, you know they're more interested in that one link. Well, the next email can follow up, can talk more about that one link. And the more they do that, the more you get inside that person's persona, what they're interested in. And if you set this up all up front, your website is doing the sales for you. When they call you, they're ready to buy. And marketing in the old school used to say 7 touches and you got the person. Well, use the sales process to create those 7 touches, and so we could spend a whole day on setting up a website in a sales process, but understand that most people are marketing with their website, not doing any sales. And it is a big problem, I think, in small local businesses in general. They're not asked, there's no ask. It is all about me, give me a call, and hope for the best. I want to break a little bit here because I'm going to move into display ads, and I want to make sure everybody understands what a display ad is. Everybody familiar with the knot? So the reason I pulled this website up in particular is the knot is plastered with advertisements. And hopefully they kick in here. There's one right there. I have no idea what that. I don't know why State Farm is showing up other than a couple of days ago I was looking at my insurance. This isn't coming up on your screen, okay? Let me do this. Okay. Okay, so, State Farm, no idea, but here's the thing. Different people will go to this website and see different ads. As you scroll through this website, you're going to see different advertising. And the advertising in this website and a million websites like it is triggered by a number of things. Location is one. Greg called me yesterday and said, can we geofence this location? We could, although it was too quick to do it. I really wanted to. I thought it'd be a great idea. What that would mean is if any of you went to this site or any number of sites on your phone has a GPS in it, which tells this ad site that your location is in a place that should show the ad that we sent up to the system. So you can geofence within 100 feet any of your customers, any of your events that you might want to go to, that kind of stuff. Now imagine, and I'll get into what geofencing actually is, but I can pick off any location, any competitor. I can pick off the whole wedding district in the Reading area, and I can start sending ads. We do that from one of the Event Connections partners or vendors. Where they wanted to, they have a Miamisburg location, they want to show up in Cincinnati. We drew a circle around the Reading wedding district, and their ads pop into the wedding district. So people, when they go to coffee shops, when they go to, restaurants, even if they're sitting there in a waiting area, they're looking at gowns, that kind of stuff, guess whose ads pop in on their phones while they're sitting there? And we've been running that now, it's almost a year now. Miamisburg, they're driving more Cincinnati traffic to their website now than any other local area because they've created that recognition. And I found out after talking with Greg and talking with Tim that people come from all over the country to go to the wedding district here. It's one of the biggest ones in the country, and the reason for it.
The biggest one.
The biggest one. So Jessica, who does like thumbing through magazines looking at dresses, wants to see a real one. And this is where you go to do it because she can bounce from shop to shop to shop to shop. And in between bouncing from shop to shop to shop, she's stopping at coffee shops, she's stopping at restaurants, she's going to all those places that you have in her storyline, and you're geofencing each one of those so that you know when she lands there, she's going to see your ad. Everybody Fitness, we found out that everybody leaves Everybody Fitness and they stop at Starbucks on the way home. So we geofence Starbucks. We found that same characteristic for Planet Fitness. Now, Planet Fitness isn't my customer, but I geofence Planet Fitness and try to get them to come over to Everybody Fitness. I also geofence all the places that they end up after they leave the gym. I say, look, there's a reason why you can't have more than an 80-pound dumbbell at Planet Fitness. There's a reason they serve pizza at the counter at Planet Fitness. If you know your competitors, you can create very specific ads that say stuff like that. It gets back to knowing the story. So that's display ads. Let's see if I can get this back up. There we go. And display ad sets are, okay. Display ad sets are just multiple dimensions of different ads. So I'm going to show you what they look like. Here's a display ad set I just worked up last night. I was going to try to do the geofencing, but I couldn't get it to happen quick enough. But all you're doing is creating a display ad set with multiple dimensions, so when it shows up on a website, when there's space available for that ad, it'll pop in there. And you get to pick the location. The beauty of geofencing is with display ads, you pay per 1,000 impressions. And if you want a number, it's about $10 per 1,000 impressions. The whole goal in ad sets like this is to get as many clicks as possible, because you're off the Google train now. You're not paying per click. If I can get 1,000 clicks, it's not going to cost me any more than if I got 10 clicks. So we want to drive multiple ads into the same venue to see which one works better. We're constantly changing the ads up and doing things to make these ads pop, including motion, video, and other things that kind of grab your eye and attention. If you're doing ads in a local area, what pops, amazingly enough, is just listing the name of the town that you want to do business in. Because people are used to seeing national ads, State Farm we just saw, Coca-Cola, all that kind of stuff. When they see the word Dayton or Cincinnati in the ad, big change. They'll start clicking it. So, oh, I recognize those guys. So that's the ad set. We understand that we want to go after specific audiences now because we want to reduce the cost of advertising. The best way to reduce the cost of advertising is to advertise to the people that are more likely to buy. On the web, who's the best market that you can sell to? People that visited your website already. They got there somehow, right? They either got there through a Google search, they just got there. Well, all you need to do, if you guys have ever shopped at Amazon, what happens? That pair of shoes follows you out the door, and it's on every freaking site out there. You can do the same thing. It's not hard to do. So just be aware of that. Every single person in this room that owns or runs a website should be retargeting. Because if you're driving traffic to your website, you want to send ads out the door to follow that person around the web. That is my first recommendation to display ads. The next recommendation is to geofence. That's cold traffic generation. You're going to push those ads into market where you know Jessica is sitting. She could be at a doctor's office, in a waiting room, at a dentist, and she could be seeing your ads. That kind of stuff. But you get to pick the locations. If you know Jessica well enough, you can place these ads in any place that you know she is. You've got to know who Jessica is. And you've got to appeal to the thing that you have a passion about, because that goes in your ad too. Go right back to number 1 and 2 on this chart. Display ads and website retargeting, they basically will pop in anywhere in these highlighted areas. I just picked the website off that did it. This happened to be Dayton Local. They'll just follow the visitor out the door, and the ad is triggered by the fact that they went to your website. That's all it is. When you talk about, now I'm going to move a little bit into the next, we're talking about SEO, your website. There's 2 forms of SEO. There's SEO, where it's basically optimizing your website for keywords that you wanted to show up for, and there's local SEO, where you want your website to show up at a specific location, and specifically you want Google My Business listings. With local SEO, I have an office at the Event Connection in Dayton, Ohio. I used to live in Centerville. I moved to Westchester. When I did, I moved my office to Westchester, and I disappeared off the Dayton, Ohio listing. I called Greg, I said I need an office, I put an office at the event connection, got it right back. You Google SEO, local SEO, web design, that kind of, you're gonna find me in Google 3-pack, which is the Google local listings in a Google search. What's happening to small businesses now is the organic listings on a local search are directories. You're getting pushed off the organic section, and that's on purpose, because if you're no longer in organic, Google wants you to pay for ads. That's the simple fact. So we as an SEO company are pivoting as well. We're spending more time on local SEO. You want to show up in Cincinnati, get another office with Tim and set up shop here in Cincinnati. It doesn't take much, but you have to have a physical presence to show up in Google My Business. You're going to be outcompeted with the directories that show up in organic. So if you want to show up in a Google search, that's the game you have to play. And then search ads. That's where Google wants you, right? That is the most expensive form of advertising. And if you don't know your audience and you don't know who you are as a customer, you know, who you're speaking to, your ads are going to cost you like crazy. Most people that start with Google search ads end up stopping and say it wasn't worth it. And that's because their ad wasn't niche, wasn't targeted enough, and they went after, you know, what's interesting with Google, the more expensive keywords are the most general terms you can use. I want to show up in all the searches. Well, great, you're going to pay for it. Injury law is $140 a click. People still do it. And then we get to outbound, and the same thing. If you don't get back 1 and 2 and understand who your audience is, geofencing is probably one of the cheapest way to do this. Because now, I can send, we did the SHRM conference, the Human Resources Conference in Las Vegas a couple of years ago for Paycor, who was right here in Cincinnati. 3-day event, we just blew Paycor ads into the SHRM conference for those 3 days. And got amazing amount of hits out of that. You can do the same thing for bridal events. It costs them less than $100 because it's a 3-day event. You're just not going to get a bazillion, you know, impressions at a 3-day event, even if 100,000 people show up to it. So it's very inexpensive. That's why geofencing works. You've got a targeted market you're going after. I'm not going to talk about other customers, but we do geofence competitors as well, because we want to see what's happening at their locations and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to end it here, but I told you at the end, talked about Bubba. Does that lot look like Bubba? I told you when I was looking through that, that's Bubba. And Bubba has a lot of toys, and right, you know, that suit he's wearing, oh, $250, $300. That fishbowl, probably $300. A smile is priceless, I guess. But that's kind of where you guys need to be thinking, and I hope that was enough to whet your appetite. Like I said, this is a 9-hour presentation in 30 minutes, so hopefully that was effective.